What is your darkest desire? I have this urge to get in my car and start driving and never stop. Ghost everyone who ever knew me, even though I have people who would miss me, pets to care for, and responsibilities to loved ones who depend on me to be here. I just want to be anyone else. I have this exact same urge at times too. Sometimes while driving to work or something, I'll just have a passing thought like, what if I just skipped this exit and just kept going, didn't call or tell anyone? Not sure if it's something I would actually do in reality, but I always think about what I might do if I actually did. I get this from time to time, but usually at night. Like, I'll run to the store or something, then on the way home I'll get hit with a thought like, what if I just kept driving through the night? Wonder where I'd end up, and for a brief second I want to do it. Then I think of my family at home and decide I'd rather be there. This but hop on a plane. But I have loving husband and 3 beautiful kids and a fat cat. Once in a blue moon crosses the mind though, like what if, and just disappear to a foreign country in a rainy alley at night with people and nightlife buzzing around you. You get drunk on the night sky, reminiscing about the past. Then after some time you wake up one day and miss your family. Realize you fucked up. Check on Facebook to see how they doing. What's this? Your husband got remarried and your kids have a new mom. Everyone seems happy. You try to feel happy for them. Everything is for the better. Your sense of purpose disappears, as does your mind into that dark rainy alley. Is this all there is? You ask yourself. It's too late to go back, to turn around. Only way forward, down into the tracks onto the next oncoming train. That is literally how Rob gained so much weight so quickly in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. When they decided that Mac was going to get fat, he realized that he couldn't eat enough calories and it took too long to eat ice cream, so he decided to melt a gallon and drink it every day. He put on weight really quick, and when it was time for him to lose weight he just stopped doing it and instantly shed 20 pounds. Mayor and several city councilors were taking kickbacks and bribes from demolition/construction/cleaning companies for cleanup contracts after a hurricane, funded by FEMA. The companies would give the mayor and city councilors like a couple grand, then the company would get FEMA funds in the tens of thousands to clean up, destroy a hurricane-damaged property. Only the address given to FEMA and listed on the contract were fake, or already cleared, so the companies got paid to do nothing. This is why we can't have nice things. But seriously, corruption is the evil that plagues every system. Anti-corruption laws should be the most strict and stringent laws we have. We should be thinking, is that really a fair punishment just for that when there's a corruption case, be it a public figure like the mayor in your example, or someone in a publicly traded company or non-profit skimming money? Corruption is corruption and it should be stamped out at all levels. Probably the Brown's Chicken Massacre, where 7 people were murdered at the restaurant over a robbery. Case was cold for 9 years until the girlfriend on one of the murderers went to the police that he had confessed to her. He and his friend were eventually convicted through DNA and a confession. The killers were also idiots for having dinner at the restaurant right before closing and tossing their leftover chicken bones in a garbage can with a fresh liner. The police preserved the refuse with a theory that they might have been eaten by the killers, and they were right. That crime effectively killed the Brown's Chicken franchise in Chicagoland, as there used to be a few dozen, but sales plummeted after the murders and they never recovered. A few members of a scummy local family broke into a bar, stole money, beer and peanuts. When they went to leave, realized there was a drunk patron sleeping out back on a picnic table. They, thinking he was a potential witness, bashed his head in with a hammer, threw his body into the back of their truck, drove the truck through the old railroad trail and dumped the body in a swamp. They were caught almost immediately because there was a trail of blood and their truck was covered in DNA, all over some cash and beer. I'm originally from a town called Hyde, a few miles outside Manchester. Unfortunately, Hyde is famous for Harold Shipman, the once trusted GP who killed elderly patients by overdosing them with diamorphine. My grandma's neighbor, Jack was one of his many victims. Side note, he also did my mom's ultrasound when she was pregnant with me. R.I.P. Jack, you were a wonderful man. I live in a small Russian city named Naukik. In 2005, we were attacked by terrorists, mobile groups of terrorists of 5-6 people, with a total number of about 200 people, armed with various small arms, including RPG-7 and RPD. Enter Naukik in cars from 2 directions. There are the first shootings between police officers and militants on the outskirts of the city. 14 civilians and 35 police officers and law enforcement agencies were killed. More than 240 people were injured, including 129 law enforcement officers. I was 5 months old then, and the stories of my parents are very surprising because now our city is very quiet and almost nothing happens. Not much of a scandal but more of a tragic event. In my small cow town, there was a missing little girl that was found in a suitcase that was floating in a water canal. The culprit turned out to be her neighbor who also had a daughter the little girl would play with. The entire city was shocked as it hit really close to home. The local drunk got into an argument with another regular at a popular bar, pulled out a gun, and shot the other guy to death. But that's not the scandal. The guy who died was apparently really nice and well liked in the community. The others in the bar were able to disarm and restrain the assailant until the police arrived. When the sheriff got there, he just said, "Looks like you all need a few more minutes with him. I'll come back later." So everyone in the bar grabbed what they could find and ended up beating the shooter to death. The sheriff reported it as self-defense and the security tapes disappeared. But the bar was crowded, so the real story got out. There were a few attempts to reopen the case or charge the sheriff and some of the bar patrons, but they were all squashed pretty quickly. The really interesting detail, in my opinion, is that there were some pretty strong rumors that the drunk had been sleeping with the wife of the man he killed and that he'd been attacked first. So the original shooting may have been in self-defense, but because there was no camera footage and all the witnesses were involved in killing the drunk, there's no way of knowing the truth. In 2000, a girl's body was found on the steps of the local middle school. She had been beaten, raped, strangled, and burned. The officer that arrived at the scene was a rookie officer. Since he was the first in the scene, the police department made him in charge of the case. The case was massively botched. The murder had shocked the community and a lot of people were talking. Several years later, the police marked it as a cold case. A local woman was doing her own detective work. She reached out to a journalist from the UK. The journalist flew to meet the woman and investigate the murder and missteps by the police. They uncovered a massive cover-up. The local police department was hostile towards the journalist and local, to the point that the state FBI branch had to get involved to protect the investigation. Due to the police department's terrorizing behavior, they ended up getting investigated by the FBI. Apparently they knew who had committed the crime, a local drug dealer, who was cozy with the police. He eventually was arrested and sent to prison for life. The police department got a slap on the wrist. The journalist went back to the UK and the local woman moved to a nearby city. Also, for anyone reading, this wasn't just a case of Mayfield Police Department, Kentucky. Just looking the other way, a female officer took one of the witnesses home with her under protective custody for a few nights. Another officer pulled the murderer over the next day, his car reeking of gas, which he used to burn the body, and the officer decided to not follow up at all on the lead or report it to anyone. They sent that one female witness home days later without ever even getting even a statement from her. They were absolutely complicit in this murder and there are no two ways about it. This is all in addition to local PD outwardly harassing and threatening the local woman and the journalist. As you said, I won't post it here because then it'd be witch hunting, but you can very easily find Mayfield PD's Facebook page with a quick search, Scum of the Earth. There was an anesthetist who worked at our local hospital and another hospital in a different town. He was rather well known among other doctors and known to be good at what he was doing. He only had a small problem with being addicted to painkillers and anesthetics, so to feed his addiction without getting caught he shot up part of his patient's drugs before injecting the same needle into his patient. Thus went unnoticed until it was discovered that over 60 of his patients got infected with hepatitis, and that he was the source for it. He was fired and his license revoked as far as I know, but the hospital's image still suffered quite a bit. Shit like this makes me wonder. I had a dental experience approx 5 years ago that I can't shake off. I had a filling, so he shot me up with Novocaine. He began to drill but I felt everything, so he gave me another shot. Still felt pain, so he gave me a third. 5 Novocaine shots later, which is apparently max doses, and I still felt pain. At that point, I was freaked out and in pain and threatened to walk with a hole in my tooth. He made me sit down to finish the tooth while I felt everything. I haven't been back to a dentist since and I need to. One of the assistant football coaches at the high school raped a 15-year-old at his house when she came over to pick up a VIP and was sent to jail with a $1 million bond and was then bailed out before his court date by a fairly renowned family and then about 3 weeks later was sent back due to having a relationship with their daughter. 16, he is like 27 I believe. Edit. https://cxcityjournal.com/news/local/crime and courts/X South Sioux coach charged with sexually assaulting 2 ND female students/article_91 edfk 9424 E5 EC 9A974 C796 C72595D0.html. Here's a news article. At my high school one year the whole basketball team held a kid down and took turns teabagging him. That was a pretty big thing. Not sure exactly what happened but it was a big story around here for a while. Here is a bit of the story but they don't go into details. A few years before that my school was one of the first in an experimental program where they had an undercover female cop act as a student for most of the school year. She had a BF, and was even in the school yearbook. That was big as well. The only person in the whole school that knew was the superintendent. Here is the story on that. High Times even had a small article about it at the time. At the time I had heard she even had slept with one of the students as well and did take drugs, even though the article says the cop didn't. I'm from a very small town in Canada, very quiet. Nothing big ever came up and it was a fairly tight-knit community. One day, an explosion went off in an apartment building. A 23 years old, single mother, who also happens to be a quadriplegic, was killed instantly. The case was eventually solved. The explosion was a gift-wrapped piped bomb left by her former financial advisor. He squandered hundreds of thousands of dollars from her and was convicted for it. He was then released on bail and then left the bomb. Wild SHT. My home county had a few historic covered bridges. They were quite the pride and joy of the area. Somebody burned one down. Somebody else saw 3 young men do the deed. Now we all knew it was a trio of kids on my class. Like most schools we had cliques, 2 of which were the preps and the burnouts. The bridge burners were preps. One's dad was the county judge. One's mom was the primary real estate agent in town. This posed a dilemma, so the parents of the preps, including the judge, hatched a little plan. They gave 3 burnouts in my class $10,000 each, mid-1980s, and the promise of a light sentence of 6 months probation if they would plead guilty and take the fall. The burnouts agreed and took their money. The judge figured if the burnouts didn't hold up their end he would make sure they found guilty anyway. So they showed up in court in front of the preps judge dad. They not only didn't plead guilty, they had a speeding ticket dated the same day and time as the time the bridge burned. But the speeding ticket was for 70 miles away. And since all 3 were minors, all 3 were named in the ticket report. The judge had no choice but to dismiss the case. And the parents of the preps weren't even mad because that was enough of an excuse to effectively end the whole investigation. Nobody got in trouble for it. It all just went away. The bridge was rebuilt. The placard was changed to say replica of a historic bridge. And for $10,000 those precious little boys didn't get a black mark in their records. Remember that ALS Ice Bucket Challenge thing? There was a bit of an incident in my small town where two high school seniors pranked a mentally disabled student by asking him to participate in the Ice Bucket Challenge, but instead dumped a bucket full of tobacco spit, human waste, etc. onto him. Needless to say, there was some outrage and the two seniors were eventually arrested. I only heard about the case through the grapevine, but it was a pretty big deal at the time. I thought their sentence was very light when I heard it. They accepted a plea deal for straight probation for a short duration. The only caveat was that they'd have to voluntarily receive a similar treatment that they subjected the disabled student to, at a local farm. I was surprised how common unusual sentences are when I looked into it. There are dozens of stories about them happening in plea deals, and those are just the ones that made the news. Again, I thought the sentence was super light, surely they'd just laugh it off, wipe it off and shower afterwards. But then, I was shown a video of it at one point, not sure how the video got leaked, but it was sent to me from a friend who got it from a friend who got it from a friend, and I was rather disturbed, but also somewhat happy, to find that I was mistaken. It was awful. I only saw one of them, in one of those inmate restraint chairs on the farm, and I thought it'd just be a little manure poured onto him and he'd just wipe it off. Nope, this stuff heavily poured onto him for at least 45 seconds straight, and it didn't look at all like dog or human waste. This stuff was thick, oozing, brownish-greenish sludge, falling right on his head, smearing all over his hair, face and pooling up on his shirt, lap as it oozed all over the place and ran down his body. And it must have smelled bad, because he was retching the whole time and puked a couple times, and it just didn't stop. By the end he wasn't even recognizable. Even when they released him from the chair, he was trying to wipe it away, but it was all stringy and oozing and smearing everywhere. Man, it looked rough. Perhaps an appropriate punishment after all, and more effective than jail. I'm glad he experienced a fair consequence for his actions. Warning, kinda gross. So, it starts with the criminal teen, who played the prank, sitting in this chair, seemingly next to a barn, with hands cuffed to the sides. There's mooing in the background, and a small crowd in front of him around 20 feet back. Seems like just family, friends of victim and perpetrator, a few farmers, and two officers. Videos apparently being shot from somewhere in the crowd. Low-quality phone footage and definitely wasn't supposed to be allowed. At one point the victim and his mother approaches him, and they talk for a little bit. You can't hear it very well, but the perpetrator apologizes and the mother nods her head. Seems like he was being apologetic. Then a minute later a female officer approaches and says, "Okay, we're almost ready. Anything else you wanted to say or any questions?" The teen, perpetrator, starts crying, apologizing, saying, "I learned a lesson. Do I really have to do this? Isn't there anything else I can do, etc." She says, "All right, if there's nothing else then we're just going to finish our preparations and we'll get started in a minute," and walks away. He looks really nervous at this point, seemingly testing the restraints of the chair and blinking a lot. A minute later, she comes back wheeling some sort of large tank, wheels it up to him, and positions the spigot, faucet thingy right over his head. He starts sort of freaking out, says, "Oh God, I can smell it," and tries to get away. They turn it on and the pouring starts. I had to look away, but I could hear the squelching and retching. I remember years ago reading a news story about a vet hospital around the Dallas area that had a back room with several dogs they were keeping around as test subjects and blood donors for patients. At least some of the dogs being kept back there were former patients. Their owners had been told their dog was put down, only to find out months later that their dog was alive and being tortured the entire time. A serial pooper. Yes, you read it right. A serial pooper. So, a few years ago the news medias started reporting about this strange incident in my hometown. Somebody is pooping in the pools in our local swimming hall, and it didn't happen once, not even twice, but at least 3 times in the same pool but in 3 different occasions. The swimming hall had to close its doors for around 6 hours after each case. The perp eventually got caught. Welcome to northern Finland. When I was in high school, 2 of those weird kids had apparently tricked a younger student into the woods during winter and forced him to suck them off. The school tried everything to silence it, but the story spread like wildfire. The perpetrators were swiftly expelled. One of the perps had to move away because of multiple death threats. The other perp stayed in town and got a massive beating by some other students. He eventually moved away too. I don't know what happened to the victim. Hope he got help.